Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon himself, the one and only James Bell. Jimbo, welcome back. How you going, buddy?
It's freezing cold, man. It's freezing cold.
Weather. First thing, weather chat. Here we go again. Change of seasons.
The UK's suddenly gone from like banging hot a few weeks ago to bloody freezing, and I've run out of heating oil.
I have to. the heating oil. When you say boiling hot, again, I need context, because I think what I believe is boiling hot and what you believe is boiling hot are probably very different.
Yeah, it was. We had a weekend there was about 18 degrees, and it was.
So that's a cold. That's a cold day.
I was there in shorts and a t-shirt, strutting around town, and then suddenly it's snowing everywhere again, and it's unreal. And I've run out of heating oil, man. So I've got
the heating oil thing. We had a meeting last night, and you were complaining. You were rugged up like Santa Claus, and you're like, "Yeah, I've run out of heating oil." And I'm like, "What the fuck is heating oil? I've never even heard of this." It's so weird to me.
What heating oil is incredibly expensive right now, mate. Thanks, Russia. How are you, man? You all right?
Yeah, I am good. You can see that it is finally here, James Bale. My Trek speed concept is behind me on the wall.
It's looking nice.
54 tooth, SRAM red. It's a thing of beauty. I haven't ridden it yet because it's been pissing down rain the whole time, but I can't bring myself. Maybe I'm weird. I don't want the first ride on the bike to be on the trainer. Like, to me, that's like sacrilegious. So I'm waiting for a good day.
I've had this new TT bike down here that I'm looking at for over a year now.
Is it a new bike anymore, or do we call it
your
old
TT
bike?
Yeah, it's just my old TT bike, and I've never ridden outside. It's never ridden. It's never ridden anything but the trainer, mate. Born in captivity, that bike.
So its first ride was a trainer ride. So I've just insulted you by saying I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah. But,
Devon
roads aren't
James
made
Bale?
for nice TT bikes, mate. They're just not.
Are you taking the road bike or the TT bike to St. George? That's a good question, actually.
I think I'll probably take the roadie just for a bit of comfort.
Fair enough. We're going to do a lot of kilometers, mate. So probably. But James, do you know what? This podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion. And this week's guest, Chris McCormack. Jimbo, you've been part of MX for ages. I always ask you, what's something you like about MX Endurance?
Oh, well, right now I see that we're slap bang in the middle of the swim Sub7 Sub8 challenge, collating everyone's data and getting their fastest 100-meter times and putting them on a leaderboard. And I'm going to reflect this back to you, mate. How is MX Endurance doing on the Sub7 Sub8 swim challenge time currently? Where are we at?
I'll say that we have some room for improvement, to be honest. I think it's there's not a lot of people that have had the good. Like I swam I did a 114 today. I had a set of 500s with a sprint 100 at the end of each one. So mine was a 114. And I'll be honest, it was like motivating to me knowing that I was doing this. I was like, I need to put in a good effort because I want to do my bit for the team. So I think we're sitting currently well over an hour, but I'm pretty sure we can bring that down. I want us to get that swim time to under an hour. So yeah,
when you say well over an hour, how far over an hour are we? Quite a way over an hour?
We'd be getting close to the cutoff for an Ironman at this point.
But yeah, for people who step it up. Come on.
Correct. Yeah, the 38 fastest 100-meter splits, we need them. We are as a team effort, trying to put together the fastest Ironman MX can do. So 38 people's best 100-meter split. Whatever the division is, I keep saying I can't work it out. 180 kilometers in 5 kilometer chunks, and then 42 1 kilometer efforts. Each month we're doing one. So that's what's coming up. And it's good fun. I like it. It creates a bit of banter. We've got a little leaderboard and everything happening. So if you want to get involved with that, you know what to do. I'll give the plug at the end of the podcast. James Bale, we have a big episode this week. A lot has happened. The curse of the podcast struck again last week in a big way, actually, like a huge way.
Somewhat.
I want to do a little bit of housekeeping too. I love and appreciate our audience, James Bale. I do. But I reckon I had 10 different people message me over the weekend the results of Oceanside. So I woke up and straight away had the race spoiled for me. And I'm like, guys, please, like, let me watch. Like, and it's literally just like nib, exclamation. Like, no great race. No, like some people were good enough to just like, yeah, did you watch the race? It was epic. I'm like, no, I've been asleep. It was, middle of the night. But the people who just like message you the result.
Yeah, that's bad form.
Please,
it's bad form,
please don't.
People. Yeah, that's
not that I could watch the race. We'll get to that.
But in the different time zones.
Let's get stuck in, James Bell, because a lot has happened. And the first one that we are going to talk about is It's I guess a bittersweet announcement, and that is that Nicola Spirig is retiring. We got this from Try 24/7, Jonathan Turner. Swiss superstar Nicola Spirig has announced that she will retire from professional triathlon at the end of the 2022 season. The 2012 Olympic champion revealed the news on Wednesday as she continues her preparation for this summer's Sub-8 bid in Germany in June. Nicola, now aged 40, has achieved just about everything in a 25-year career in the sport and says now it's time to spend more time with her family and take on new projects. In early February, Spirig broke her collarbone and 2 ribs, as well as puncture in her lung in a bike crash in training, but she remains on course for Sub-8, the main focus of what will now be her last season in the sport. She will compete in some events post Sub-8, but then will wrap up a glorious spell at the elite end of swim, bike, run. Spirig's career includes, she wrote an Instagram post, over the past 25 years, I've achieved just about everything I've ever dreamed of, both athletically and personally. I've been able to take part in 5 Olympic Games. I've won 2 Olympic medals.
5 of them.
5. That's correct. 5, not 4, 3, 5. And there's only been 6?
Yeah.
I believe.
Remarkable.
I've 2 Olympic medals, 7 European Championship titles. I was Switzerland's Sportswoman of the Year. I've built up a foundation and the Kids Cup series, and I'm a mother of 3 wonderful children. I'm incredibly grateful and also somewhat proud to have been able to experience all of this over the years. I'm at peace with my life and my career, which is why I've decided to retire from professional triathlon at the end of the current season. Now, of course, Nicola will put the focus of ending her career high in that Sub-8 bid, something she describes as an incredible challenge. In my final season, the Sub-8 Project will be a first highlight coming up in June. Thereafter, I will be entering a few more events before wrapping up my year. James Bale, Nicola Spirig, retiring. What are your thoughts?
I mean, what a career she's had.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, what an astounding journey she's been on. And I love the fact that she is wrapping it up with the Sub-8 challenge, and then obviously a few more bits and pieces after that. But the Sub-8 is an incredible way to put a sort of, a bookend on that career, because she could go out as, on paper, the fastest woman over the iron distance, outside of race conditions, but still within that sort of Sub-8 challenge parameters. And I love that. I don't think she's got anything more to prove, has she, in the sport? But, 5 Olympics that's a big shift, that, hey?
It's mind-blowing, actually. Yeah, it really is, hey? 5.
It is strange thinking back to what that first Olympics would have been like in 2004, as a sort of, her first entry into the Olympic Games. 2004 was a long time ago, man. A lot of shit has happened since 2004.
I finished high school in 2003, mate. Like, I turned 18 in 2004. Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
A lot of life stuff's happened between then and now, eh? And she's just been on this journey. I mean, a lot of stuff's happened in her life as well, but she's been on this consistent sporting achievement journey, and the quality's never really dipped. She's in my mind, she's in the conversation for the greatest triathlete of all time. She's up there.
She's on the top 10 for me. That's for sure. I mean, most successful short course athlete, I think. 2 gold and silver at the Olympics. Possibly the best Olympic finish I've ever seen in my life. In fact, until last year, absolutely the best triathlon finish I'd ever seen. Still right up there for the conversation. Incredible athlete. Somebody I think a lot of people brush over or seem to, not. She's, because Nicola isn't as in your face as a lot of other athletes, and that's not a criticism of the other athletes.
Or criticism of her. She hasn't sort of branded herself up as the branded Instagram sports personality thing, where you just got a constant barrage of well-made, well-polished videos and pictures and stuff, advertising brands and partners, and she doesn't come across like that kind of athlete. So she kind of, in my mind, flies under the radar a bit, but she's astounding. She's such an incredible performer.
She really is. And I think, having her sort of the last big event being that Sub-8 attempt, like, again, I think it really flows into that narrative, and then she's going to go away and do a lot of work with the foundation and all the kids stuff. Like, it's a really good narrative, and congratulations. Like, again, an absolute legend of the sport. Sport will be a worse sport when she's not in it, but
is
it's
it a
better
shame
as
we
a
never saw her race
it.
Kona or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it would have been good, but I don't think I don't look back. It's a good question, actually. I'd not thought about it. I mean, probably not, because I'd never considered her really like that sort of athlete, I guess. Like she has just been short for so long, and then she did the 70.3s and stuff. So it would have been interesting. Like, she's a class athlete. She would have definitely shook things up. Yeah. I'd love to do that. Like, who are the best athletes to not do Kona? Like, that's an interesting conversation, I think. So
you and I are in that conversation, aren't we? Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's a in the halls of legends. I think that there's a spot for James Bell there. Sexiest voice who's not done.
I can see my breath. I can see my breath when I breathe out. That's how cold it is. It's freezing.
Mate, again, I appreciate our listeners and watchers appreciate the sacrifices, the lengths that you go to. And what I think this is your penance for your absolutely awful internet connection last week.
I know, it's improved, isn't it? Isn't it better?
Oh, mate.
It's better this week.
Trying to edit the podcast last week was grim, mate. That was grim. I'll be honest. It wasn't a joy. So that's your penance. I hope it's freezing, actually. I hope you're really struggling. I hope you're really uncomfortable.
I'm really cold, but I'm craving jalapeno peppers for some reason. You know those little pickled ones, those green ones?
That's so weird. What a weird thing to say to an audience of thousands and thousands of people. That's such a weird... Okay. You got Uber Eats, order some jalapenos. Mate, we've got some races to talk about because obviously the other big thing we're going to talk about, we've got Mac on later, so we'll drop that bit in. Anyway, it's coming. I know people, I think they know what we're talking about. Let's talk about Ironman South Africa. Now, I watched this race pretty much I didn't sit down and watch the whole thing. I definitely watched the last half of the run, but I can talk through it a little bit. You sort of checked in a little bit. You watched bits and pieces, or have you seen any of it, or what?
Ironman South Africa. Ironman South Africa. I was mainly watching it on the tracker because I was moving around a fair amount that day, so I didn't really get to see a huge amount of it. You probably watched it in more detail than I did, I think, because you were messaging me. So I'll let you kick this off, and I'll just chip in with some nuggets of wisdom as we go through and probably correct.
Well, I'll go straight to the winners. So in first place was Kyle Buckingham. It's worth pointing out the swim was shortened to 700 meters because it was so cold or choppy or something. The typical South Africa, Ironman South Africa is basically a duathlon at this point, I think.
Yeah. Sharks and
Kyle
waves,
Buckingham.
mate. You don't want to be swimming in South Africa. Sharks and waves.
Correct. Kyle Buckingham in first place, and I'm not going to do the times because it's like 7:16. Second place was Bradley Weiss. Third place, Matt Troutman. Fourth place, Joe Skipper. Fifth place, Colin Chartier. Now, on the bike, it was a bit, I think Michael Raylert and Joe Skipper made a bit of a break. Joe had a problem with his bike and I think I saw on social media, he said that his bar tape was pushing the blip on his base bar, so his gear kept shifting down. So he stopped to fix that. So the group caught up to Joe, and then it was just a pack ride basically to the end of the bike. And then
because we thought he dropped a chain, didn't we? But it turns out it was just the bike was auto shifting for him because of the rain and the grip moving. So
yeah, that's what it was a really wet swim and bike. And then as they got onto the run, apparently it just absolutely went scorching hot, super humid because it had been raining all day. But then on the run, it looked like Joe faded quite early, and then I think as well Bradley Weiss faded quite early. So you had Kyle Buckingham, who literally just led. Man, he just went to the front and stayed the front all day. But what was really good about this race was that battle for the win, because you had Matt Troutman and Bradley Weiss, who were sort of, to and fro in a little bit. They sort of came together quite early in the run, and then Matt Troutman surged, dropped Bradley Weiss, and then Bradley came back, and they ran together for a while, and that gap to Kyle Buckingham seemed to really start to shrink. And then I think it was maybe like over 30K, like maybe 35K into the run, Bradley went for it. And then he spent what felt like the next 7 kilometers trying to close the gap to Kyle Buckingham. And I'm not talking like he had hands open, looked like he is sprinting, mate. Like he was running so hard, and he got the gap down to 11 seconds is the shortest gap that I saw it was at. And it just stayed there. It didn't get any closer. And mate, it was epic. It was absolutely epic to watch, because every time he'd cut to and Kyle Buckingham's he's looking over his shoulder, like he's scared, mate. He's thinking, fucking hell, where's this guy? Where's this guy coming? And Bradley Weiss is like hands open, sprinting for like leaving absolutely everything out there. And in the end, I think he realized, no, I can't do it. So his pace dropped off a little bit those last few 100 meters, but a complete South African podium. So as I said, Kyle, Bradley, and then Matt. It was epic. It was a fantastic. I mean, I would have liked to see Joe, obviously not being biased, see Joe on the top of the podium. I thought he would, but I can understand why, if those guys are digging that level and that he's got a world champions in a few weeks, probably don't. but it was fantastic. It was one of the better iron distance events to watch that I've seen recently, because that run, like the narrative and the shift and the way the gap was changing and everything, it was epic to watch. It was really well covered too. So that was the men's race. Do you want to talk about the men's race, or do you want to go into the women's race a bit?
No, yeah. I mean, I love a finish like that. I think it's fantastic when you see somebody really digging that deep at the end of a race of that distance to try and bring the gap down. And, it's quite rare that we see people finishing that close, or where you feel like there's an actual race at that point of the race, rather than the dynamic of the race being played out earlier on through tactics, or someone being a lot stronger than someone else. So, and I think we're going to see more and more of that as we see the PTO tour evolve, and we start to see more competitive races and fields condensed with more competitive people racing each other. So I think we're in for a treat over the next few years as we start to see, the better athletes coming together at more races. So we're going to see more racing.
I think it's also a good time to address something that I wanted to talk about, which I love. I love this stuff so much. Is the video, Mikael Eden's YouTube channel, which you've got Christian and Gustav basically responded to an article that Joe had been quoted in, talking about, like, basically don't people need to stop buying into the Norwegian hype, like they're beatable. Like and I think the points he made were quite valid. Saying not that he's not saying that the Norwegians are bad. He's just saying that if you look at strategically, they can be beaten. And you've got Christian and Gustav just like, don't believe the hype, Joe Skipper. Like, what happened? It's funny how the English hype is there until race day, and then it vanished. Like, just absolutely giving it to him. I love it. I love it. And obviously we work with Joe, so we were having chats with Joe post race, who said it was just like, didn't have the run legs, and that's sort of the point of it.
I love that.
Yeah, what do you think about that whole thing?
I love that back and forth as well, because I mean, it's the job of a pro athlete to believe in themselves, not the competition. So of course, Joe's out there saying, don't believe the hype train, because they are beatable. We can do this. And it would be, in my mind, it would be a travesty if I hear any athlete say, "Oh yeah, on their best day, I can't beat them," because that's not the approach you have to take. And I love their response and the comeback. And there's been a back and forth now. It's gone deeper. There's a video on the Sub7 Instagram and Twitter account where
Pho3nix account,
where they're showing showing Christian a video of Joe that was recorded in Girona, and it's good fun. It's good fun.
Now, I know that Mikael Eden listens to the podcast, so he's accused you, James Bale, of not believing the Norwegian hype. What do you think, mate? How do you respond to that person being personally attacked?
Yeah, I got called out. Well, Mikael, look, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? You want me to just capitulate at the altar of Norwegian supremacy? I
think that's what he wants. I think that's exactly what he wants. That's what they all want.
That's not how we get ourselves from to a good sport where everyone just says the Norwegians are going to win. So what's the point in turning up? Look, there's some good quality stuff coming out of Norway at the moment, and it's going to be a hell of a race at Sub7. It's going to be a hell of a race at St. George. So let's see what happens. But
I saw the polls. So the PTO put up a poll this week, and it was like the Norwegian hype train or the British hype train. And I literally don't know. Like, I don't know how to vote, because I just want them all to do well. I want to see this. I mean, I even saw a quote that Christian got quoted where he said, St. George is the only people who can win St. George are Jan, Gustav, and me. I'm like, I love it. I love that he's just coming out and just being like, everybody else is irrelevant. But I also said, I think,
choo.
Oh, it's fucking. I'm so happy that this stuff is happening. And again, it's not like they're going, this guy's a fuckwit and I hate him. It's going like,
it's the rivalries need to exist, and there is a respect there, and it's funny, and it's a humorous rivalry, but it is a real intensity between them. But they're not coming out and doing each other over and making the sport look worse through behavioral issues. But they're coming out, and these rivalries are amusing, but they're real and they exist, and these people want to beat each other, and I love that in triathlon.
Well, I was saying to you before, I listened to your interview with Kat and Sky today. I hadn't listened to it since editing it, and I love that there's this, like, they're friends, but there's also this, like, but I've literally beat you every single time.
You've never beaten me.
Come on now. I love it. I love that mindset, and you're right. It is something we're talking a lot about with this. Like, people just, I can't beat Frodo, and it's like, mate, I don't want to. I want every person to think they can beat everybody. Like, I love that, and that's why I've always really liked Christian and Gustav for that exact thing, where they're like, we're the best. We can beat anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being at the Collins Cup, and I was standing talking to Jan, and it was just him and I standing there having a beer, chatting about stuff.
Your best mates, so of
Yeah,
course.
besties, basically, of course, yeah. And then Sam Long came up, and it was just after the race, and Sam was, oh yeah, well, good race today, mate. You're the best. You're the best. You're the GOAT. It was a pleasure to be out there with you. All this stuff, and yeah. Then he wandered off. And then later on in the evening, when we'd all had a bit more to drink, I was like, Sam. I was talking to Sam. I said, Sam, mate, just stop with the deferring to Frodo stuff. Don't tell him he's the GOAT. Don't tell him he's the best. Just like say good race.
Coming
move
for
on.
you, mate.
Yeah,
I'm coming for you.
yeah.
I've got my eyes on you.
Stop it. Short, bold English bloke dishing out advice drunkenly at the post-event party.
Sounds amazing. Let's turn our attention to the women's race in South Africa. Now, again, I actually didn't see the end because it was getting quite late for me, but I was watching this, and it turned out to be, Daniela Blumel, who won it, she basically went to the front, stayed the front of the day. But again, what was really cool was this second and third place. And I didn't realize this till I was going through the recap that Jonathan Turner from Try 24/7 put together, and I saw that Susie Cheatham was in there, and De Vries, Sarisa De Vries from the Netherlands. They were also there, and it was sort of like second and third. And I saw Susie Cheatham was starting to walk a little bit. I was like, shit, she's going to lose second here. Like, she's walking a fair bit. And then I saw she was walking a lot, and it turns out that neither of those two women finished. So Daniela won the race in 8:22:35, and then 12 minutes behind her was Elena Iladich from Germany, and third place Magda Nieuwort from South Africa in 8:37. Fourth place Nadia Van Herden, and fifth Jade Nichols. Sorry, something's in my throat. But it didn't go the way I really thought. I was like, it's just going to be like those 1, 2, 3 because they were so far ahead. And it turns out, like they say, anything can happen.
Yeah, never stop pushing.
Two of them didn't finish.
Never stop pushing. What was the dynamic like on the women's race? Was it racy? 12 minutes is a long way to win a race by.
Daniela was just, like I said, she just looked comfortable, man.
Yeah.
She was just running. She didn't look under threat at any point. It was just, she got to the front on the bike and she just stayed there all day. Like, again, very different. It never seemed like it was actually going to be a battle. So that's probably why I was, and again, I'll be honest, I was pretty keen just to watch what Joe was doing. But then that men's race was so good. But again, she's a great athlete. So we shouldn't discredit her dominating. Like, I think it's worth saying, like, what a good performance to be that far in front. And win comfortably is not a bad thing for a strong athlete.
You're right.
Yeah, I'm coughing. I'm just coughing up my lung.
Yeah, like you're having a seizure.
No, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Perseverance. So again, thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think this was a bit more of, from what I was saying on the men's race, where you've got the biggest competitors coming together, fast racers actually having a race. This women's race reflected a bit more of an old school approach, where you've got one dominant athlete with a who's a lot stronger than the rest, winning by 12 minutes. Doesn't mean it's still not an interesting race or a hell of a performance, but a slightly more traditional Ironman outcome. Hopefully, we'll start to see, on the women's side, the more condensing and the higher quality fields coming together a bit more often as well.
Yeah, like I said, still incredible performance, and it shows how tough the day was if two of the women have to pull out. Like, it apparently was steaming, like super, super hot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tough conditions for everyone, like literally going from freezing cold to crazy warm. Like, that can't be easy. So
it's not a having the swim shortened quite so often as South Africa does is not. It's not a tempter, is it? It makes you think, I'm not sure I'd ever go and sign up for that race because I don't want to have a shortened swim.
It still is where that incredible race between Frodo, Brownlee, and Alistair happened in 2018, though. So
yeah,
great things have happened there, mate.
Great.
Looked like a cool course. Apparently, the roads were brutal, though.
Yeah.
One thing as well, like Michael Raylo, for a long time was the world record holder for 70.3. He faded so quickly. I don't know what happened. I hope he's all right, to be honest, because I really like Michael Raylo. But I just was, it was quite sad to see how he just went backwards, mate. So, Colin Chartier, first Ironman, 5th place.
Not too bad, eh?
Not too bad.
I like Colin Chartier.
Me too. Like I said, name we certainly heard a lot more from last year. The next one to talk about, mate, is a little race happening in California. Now, you did watch this, and I was unable to. So, do you want to take us through this, or do you want me to read the thing, or do you just want to talk about it?
Yeah, let's have a chat about it, because I did watch some of it. I didn't manage to watch all of it. I had to go out towards the end, so I was popping in and out.
So you missed the finish.
I missed the finish. Yeah, man.
Oh,
I missed the finish.
devastating.
Yeah, I know.
So,
but I think
I mean,
the coverage missed most of the key parts of the finish as well, didn't they? So I've heard.
yeah,
But
I mean,
let's talk about the men's race first. I mean,
mhm.
Alistair Brownlee was the big name on the start list with Lionel Sanders as well. And Brownlee was looking good, wasn't he, for the win? With the approaching the 10-kilometer mark, Brownlee started to make a move, opening up some on the downhills and pulling clear of Von Berg. And he now had Laundry competing the top three. So Canute was out the game, looking like he wasn't going to win his Oceanside race again. And Lionel Sanders was running well. But it was later in the race that Laundry started pushing hard, didn't he? And he took the lead from Alistair Brownlee. And then Alistair Brownlee started capitulating. It looks like he went boom, mate. It looks like he went backwards like a motherfucker. And he's put out a thing saying he thinks he was a bit rusty. So, going from leading the race comfortably.
2 years without a race.
Yeah.
2 years without. And it's not like the other guys were fucking around, mate. Like Lionel Sanders ran a 108, mate, off what looked like a fairly soft bike ride for him. Mate, Lionel Sanders can fucking run. Like he is.
Doesn't look
God
like he
almighty.
should be able to run, does he? But he can.
No.
He's a swift runner. I mean, I was really quite impressed with Jackson Laundry and seeing the result when I woke up.
Oh, mate, I was shocked. I wouldn't. And again, I did dismally. I think we both did dismally with our picks.
Oh yeah, terrible.
I wouldn't have picked Jackson Laundry. There was no situation last week that I would have picked Jackson, and it's not because he's not a good athlete. He's absolutely a great athlete, as he showed over the weekend. But I was like, Alistair Brownlee, Lionel Sanders, Rudy Von Berg, Ben Canute, Sam Appleton. These are like big names with a serious resume behind all of them. And to do what he did, like talk about a breakthrough performance, to do it the way he did too, mate, incredible, fantastic stuff from Jackson. And
you seen Sean the picture Green, of Jackson running past Brownlee? Yeah,
mate, classic. Yeah. Like they caption this. Yeah. I wanted to give. I said to everybody, but the start who was sort of spoiling it for me. Sean Green, who's an MX member, friend of mine, he's close with Jackson. Did not spoil it. Like he was like, "Oh, have you watched the race yet?" I'm like, "I'm trying to, mate, but this fucking website won't let me. Have to pay to watch the replay." It wasn't until I went and read a recap. I was like, "Mate, Jackson won." He's like, "Yeah, I've been waiting to tell you." And again, I really respected. Like he must have been so excited because he's quite close with Jackson. Yeah, mate, incredible performance from Jackson. And like, there's plenty of things I want to talk about from this performance specifically. Lionel Sanders on the old style UCI Legal Canyon TT bike. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I don't know what the reason behind riding that bike would be, other than maybe some sort
lighter.
Yeah, lighter.
So maybe for St. George, a course with.
That's what I was thinking. I was about to say he's probably training. He's probably training for an event where there's going to be a hillier course, or an event where he has to ride that bike. So we'll see what Lionel Sanders has got planned in the future. But the only reason in my mind he would ride that bike over his triathlon TT bike would be to get some time on it, because he's got to use it coming up for something he's got coming up.
We should actually, and I can't believe we haven't spoken about the sprint finish, because that, to me, Jackson Laundry's performance aside, that sprint finish, mate, was something like, imagine if that was for the win.
Yeah, I know. It was so cool.
Rudy Von Berg, again, an athlete who always deserves to be considered a podium contender at every race he goes to, showed exactly why. That finish between him and Lionel was epic. And I saw literally, Lionel is centimeters ahead of him at the finish. So,
do you think Ironman need to sharpen up their finish line technology a little bit?
Did you see it? No, there's a real. I think it was Talbot Cox put up it's clear as day. Like they had the race person there with the camera, so it's quite clear that Lionel crossed first. But I think the timing, Matt, don't go down to the close enough.
No,
intervals or whatever. But mate, Lionel. Back to Lionel though. I was really curious to see where he was at after that extended break and working with Mikel Eden and everything. A few things. Is it concerning that he doesn't, like, I don't know whether was I expecting him to come out and absolutely destroy this race and win by 10 minutes, or like Lionel is that, and he's won a lot of races, but he always seems to be coming second. Like,
but here comes Lionel, man. Here comes Lionel, because we've seen him drop off a little bit after his sort of, he emerged and got that second place in Kona and then dropped off, and now he's been working with Mikel, And we're seeing a consistency of performance from him that we haven't seen for a long time. And I'm really enjoying it. And I'm here for it. And I think that he's going to be right up there in St. George. I really do. And I think
he's coming in of prime form, hey?
Yeah. Wow. And he'll never stop amusing me as an athlete. He'll never stop amusing me because you use the example.
It's who he is as a person.
Yeah.
It's who he is as a person, yeah.
You use the example of the bumblebee. Like, shouldn't be able to fly, but can. And Lionel Sanders is just, he's just out there doing it. And I think in St. George, he's going in as one of the absolute stone cold favourites. Now, his sprint finish in this race was fantastic. Second place is fine, but it's not St. George. It's not the race that he's really zeroing in on. So I think we're going to see him come into fine form for that race. And then beating Alistair Brownlee here into 4th place, that's going to do nothing but give a confidence boost for him, because he's going to be like, look, you might be Alistair Brownlee, but you're not there yet, bro.
What you just said, I think is really relevant and something that has to be taken into consideration here, is that there's athletes here who, and again, I think it applies to Joe Skipper too, but St. George isn't far away, mate. Like, St. George is very, like, we're literally, like, we're booking flights, like, we're flying in weeks. Like, it's not far away. So yeah, some of these, like, Alistair Brownlee, are you concerned for him with St. George and then sub 7 coming up? Like, does this tell you shit? Like, what's going on here? Or to you, is it just like, it wasn't his big race? Maybe he tested something. Maybe he saw how deep these guys were going and didn't want to dig that deep. Like, what do you think it was? What do you think from that performance?
I'm not that concerned, because this isn't St. George. It's not sub 7. So he could just be trying out various bits and pieces, and the result maybe doesn't matter to him that much. But I think this is a key indicator that he is not leaps and bounds ahead of the competition like we thought he might be. Like, listening to your bonus episode with Maka, when Maka was talking about it, and he was saying, genetically, Alistair Brownlee is far and away the best triathlete we've seen. And he's been training like a madman for sub 7 and, St. George. And this is the big year, the big sort of coming out year. And a part of me was like, well, it's going to be interesting. Part of me was like, well, maybe he's going to come out and be leaps and bounds ahead of everybody. Kind of like we've seen from Christian when he races an Ironman. Leaps and fucking bounds ahead of everybody. And we're not seeing that from Alistair Brownlee. Is that because he's holding it back? Or is it because he's not up where Christian is?
This is the thing that I'm curious about. And again, you talk about the sport having a short memory, because I'm, like, again, completely on the same page as you. Christian didn't have a good Dubai race, and we talk about the mechanical. He was off the pace from the get-go, mate.
He was. You're right.
People aren't worried about Christian for St. George.
No.
You know what I mean? And that's what I find. Like, so we've had Christian have a bad race. Nobody cares. He's still going in a red hot favorite. Alice has had a bad race. People are like, oh shit. Joe's had a bad race, but oh shit. And you talk about the hype, and let's use the hype train thing.
Oh, a second. I used that bad race in Dubai to derail the hype train. So you say no one cares. It was a conversation that we had, yeah.
I'm talking general masses, I think, here. Like, I just find it interesting because, again, I'm the same. Like, maybe we are starting to see more of that specialization. Alistair Brownlee's focusing on Ironman. I have St. George. I have sub 7, Kona. There are 3 Ironman distance races. I need to train for Ironman. You can't then go out and race, I swear, unless you're those crazy Norwegians. There has to be, at some point, some level of specialization. I swear, if you're looking at that year with that load and you think about the recovery and the fact that he's got this whole team around him, he's changed his whole approach, there has to be some give at some point. And maybe that's what we saw. I don't know. I'm speculating here, but I don't think that one performance means he's out. I don't think it means he's done. I think we still have to absolutely consider him a real contender for St. George. Again,
I agree.
People are so keen to write Alistair Brownlee off at long course, and I don't. He's had one really bad race, Kona. Everyone has a bad Kona their first time normally, but everything else he's done, he finished
totally.
4th.
And I want to believe he's not. He hasn't got fragility in him. I do. I mean, I'm certainly not keen to write him off. I'd love to see him go to St. George and have a brilliant race. I
hope it's a battle. I hope it's like 6 of them, 5 or 6 of them.
I want St. George to be a battle, and then I want to see him and Christian at sub 7 checking lumps off each other.
I hope they put each other in the fucking
till
locker
someone
in St. George.
Absolutely blows up with about a kilometre to go on the run and just can't even stand.
We should talk about the women's race, mate.
We
because
should.
we have gone on about the men's race, and it was a decimation.
Yeah.
Taylor Knibb destroyed everybody. Like, wow.
Got
Like, again,
a TT bike, isn't she?
Yeah. I don't. Position wasn't. I didn't think her position looked excellent, to be honest.
No.
But mate, she was fastest swim, fastest bike, and set like one of the fastest runs. Got outrun by Ash Gentle, but she was just in another postcode. Off she goes.
Hell of a race. I think
she's red hot, mate.
From what we saw of her at the Collins Cup last year, showing what she can do on a road bike against some of the best triathletes in the world, to come out here and put that sort of performance in on the bike where she just took time out of everybody and then held the win on the run. You know, she is, mate, she's the future of long course triathlon on the women's side. She really is.
She really is.
Who did we pick? Who did you pick for the win on this one?
Ash Gentle.
And Ash was that, didn't I? Who did I pick?
Ash Gentle. We had the same first and second, and we had differed at third, I think.
Why didn't I pick Taylor Knibb for first place?
I don't know. I think we weren't sure.
I
think I know. I just expected Ash to be better. I genuinely thought Ash was going to. I genuinely, hand on heart, thought Ash was going to win this.
Yeah.
And again, she's just starting out. I don't think it's necessarily a sign of anything. Taylor is still sort of in between things. I think we're still going to see Taylor probably start to focus on short course as we get into the year.
What a performance, though. And it's good to see Holly Lawrence up there on the podium. Good to see her firing again.
She said she had no run speed. So interesting that she was 3 minutes behind, or 2 and a bit minutes behind. So
I'd like to
what's
see
interesting
Holly
though
really come back into form.
Same. Daniela Reef.
Yeah,
Daniela Reef, mate. We keep talking about Daniela. Was she 10th, and then she was disqualified?
10th, then a DQ for speeding on a downhill, and she put an Instagram post out saying that was the fastest she'd felt all
Only
day.
part she was fastest. Only part of the course she was fastest.
Yeah. So not the best day for Daniela Reef. I mean, it's going to be really telling, isn't it, in St George, to see how she performs on the across the full distance at the World Championship race, the first World Championship race of the year. So I hope to see good things from Daniela. But I'm yet to be convinced.
Fingers crossed, mate. Like I said, I see this going 1 or 2. I mean, there's many variables, but I'm going to go with 2. She is going to go to St George and do what she does and win, like destroy it, or she's going to continue to have this series of performances. She'll probably retire by the end of the year. I don't see Daniela Reif being an athlete who's going to continue with these sort of middling performances for long. I think she'll just go, I've had enough of this. I hope. I mean, Daniela Reif's fantastic. If she is going to go out, I'd like to see her go out on top. I don't want to see her just continue to whatever. But again, I think she just earns the right, mate, to be. You can never count her out, because when she's on, she's the best in the world. So
yeah, totally. I don't think counting her out is the answer. You just, like you say, you don't want to see her just dwindle in mid pack. If she is on the downhill trajectory, we want it to be, we'll see.
Now, the next thing to talk about is there's an exciting race happening this week, mate. Something that we both love, and it's back again this year. And this year it is part of the WTCS separate series, but it's the Triathlon Super League Arena Games are back. Now, I know that you put that thing in it, but we're doing pretty well for time this week. And I think at this point, most people are aware of what the Arena Games are. So what I thought we'd focus on quickly was we'll go through the start list and we'll have a bit of a chat, because I think people are just going to have to check this out. We're talking about very short races. If you're interested in triathlon,
very short races. There's a heat 1 and a heat 2, and then a final. Heat 1 for the women, heat 1 and heat 2 for both men and women, and then there's the final, which is going to decide the winner. Women's heat 1 has Beth Potter. Oh, how do I say that surname, bro?
Lena Minor?
Beth Potter, yeah. Lena Minor, Louisa Lagana Pratt, Gina Serrano, Ilana Zane, Barbara de Koning, Ira Rodriguez.
Yep.
Heat 2 has Zanet Bragmeyer, Annabelle Kroll, Elisa Koenig, Petra Kuritova, Romana Gajaz Silva, and Anna Godoy.
I would just like to point out that I did not suggest that you read it. You
I know.
Upon yourself.
I know.
That wasn't me trying to set you up.
As soon as I started, I was like, I've picked the wrong one. I'm doing the women's.
Well, I'll do the men's, because I think there's a few. Okay. Heat 1, Martin Van Riel. Second, Alois Knabel. Third, Chase McQueen. Gianluca Pizzati, Simon Henslett, Max Stapley, Russell White, Aurelian Raphael. And in Heat 2, Alex Yee, Gordon Benson, Yao Silva, Dar Smith, Cheba Kendall, Justus Nislag, Yannick Schufer, and Donald Hillebrecht.
Some new names,
a few
here,
names
mate.
on there.
Yeah, there's some
There's
new
a few
names.
I don't know as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not the standard cast of characters we come to expect from the Super League Arena Games. It's there are some names missing there that we're used to seeing on these start lists, aren't there? You know, last time we saw Johnny Brownlee there, we saw
Jess Learmonth.
Sophie Coldwell, Jess Learmonth. You know, I'm naming British athletes, but there was a more recognisable collection of names. Beth Potter's there. So Beth Potter and Martin Van Riel, the reigning champions, are both there.
Are they? Did Beth Potter win it last year? I thought Jess Learmonth.
Oh, it was Jess Learmonth. So, yeah, so sorry, reigning champion Jess Learmonth is not at the Arena Games.
Do better.
Beth Potter, who did really well last year, is at the Arena Games. Yes. And so, yeah, we're very interesting to see some new names race, though. And it is exciting racing, isn't it? So I think it doesn't really matter that we haven't got the names that you'd expect to see there, because it's going to be banging.
Do you think that the world title that is now available, I would have expected there to be more names, knowing that there's a world title up for grabs? I'm actually surprised that there's not more names on this list.
Yeah, I am as well. But you know, it's a very busy year, and
for short course.
Yeah,
not for short course, mate.
Commonwealth Games, isn't it? Commonwealth Games, WGCS Championship.
Yeah, it's true. It's a good point. Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, I'm going to say Beth Potter's going to win for the women, and that Martin Van Riel actually is going to be
win for the men. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be Martin Van Riel, Alex Yee, isn't it, who are racing it out on the men's side? I think
Chase McQueen's good. Chase McQueen's can be up there. So
yeah. Who sounds a lot like he should be in an animated film about cars racing each other.
Lightning McQueen, isn't it?
That's
the car.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, again, Arena Games, get on it, guys. I'm going to be watching it this weekend. I think Macca and Will are in commentary, which is always good. And the broadcast, I just hope they got an actual physical finish line this time. I hope you guys have listened to us.
Yeah,
physical finish line, please. That's what they need.
Yeah.
Cool bananas. Arena Games, get on it, guys. We're both fans of it, and I think it's only going to get better. The main course, mate, the big thing that we're going to talk about, and I actually got Chris on this week to talk about, is the news that dropped the day after we recorded the podcast. And a lot of people are like, why didn't you talk about it on the podcast? Because we recorded a day early. The podcast curse struck again, and that is the news that Lucy Charles-Barclay is injured and out of basically every big race this year. I got this summary from John Levinson at Tri 24/7. As I said, she's out. She revealed the news on her YouTube channel. She explained she had a small fracture in the cortical region of her hip, along with a large amount of edema. She said, it's obviously devastating that this year had the potential to be the biggest of my career, with 2 world championships at the iron distance, sub-8 attempt, and the 70.3 worlds at the end of the year. So obviously Utah is out of the question. The Sub-8 project is out of the question, but I will definitely be there in some capacity, supporting the other athletes, maybe even commentating. And then after that, again, I can't really look at a timeline. I'm probably going to miss most of the PTO races, which again is such a great thing for our sport, but I'm not going to be able to do any of those this year. And then in the later half of the year, I can't really promise that I'm going to be racing. I just don't know where I'm going to be. I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on myself. Now, do you want me to drop the interview with Chris in and we'll come back and have a chat about it, or how do you want to do it? You tell me. You lead it.
Drop the interview with Chris in now, mate. Do it now.
We'll be back. Welcome back to the podcast, Chris McCormack. Macca, good to have you back on the show as always. How you going, mate?
Pretty good. I just got out of bed, so it doesn't look like my pajamas because it's a t-shirt. But yeah,
you could have got away with it. Nobody would have known, mate. They'd be like, "Oh, he's well dressed for this." Macca,
there's my boxer shorts.
Yeah, notice I always keep the camera. Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm wearing clothes today. It's not pajamas. Macca, the news broke last week after we put out our episode that Lucy Charles-Barclay has unfortunately had to withdraw from the Sub-8 event. Which obviously is tragic. Lucy is a fantastic athlete. I think she was going to have a huge year, but we thought we'd get you on this week to, I guess, talk a little bit around what's going to happen with the event, where things are at, and just get it from the mouth of Macca, basically. So, firstly, what do you think about it all?
It's sad. I'm personally sad for any athlete getting injured, especially someone of Lucy's caliber, so early in the season and right around critical racing with St. George on in a month, and, her going in as one of the favourites for that event. I think was she registered to race in California from memory? I can't remember if she was going to race California up, which would have been interesting against Taylor Knibb if she did.
I can't remember.
I think firstly we're all robbed of seeing an amazing athlete coming into what could have been one of her her flagship year. We saw that 70.3 Ironman win last year in Utah, and she was coming in to resurrect those 3 silver medals at the World Championships over the Ironman distance, potentially in St. George. So that's a shame. But, to get a stress fracture in the femur with a, what do you call it, a edema, with a blood, it's not a blood clot, but a blood swelling, it fractured the bone in the femur. The femur is the biggest bone in the body, so, and the strongest bone in the body. So you must have been doing some work. And you could see that in Lucy following her for the sub-7. She was doing a lot of run work for whatever reason, be that because of the sub-7, sub-8 event, running up against Nicola, who wants to drop a 240 marathon, and her doing some more work. She's changed coaches with Dan Lorraine, and maybe a lot of talk around what Annie Haug's doing as all these runners. So, whenever you're trying to develop, someone like Lucy's been she's just gone from the start. She's been an amazing athlete to follow, an amazing success. But you sort of start to not plateau out with the utmost respect. When you get to that point where you're starting to find marginal gains, that's when athletes tend to get injured. You that momentum of such forward progress when you're new to a sport, and that sort of peters off and plateaus, and you're trying to find those small marginal gains in running or swimming. I think that's where she was in that training block, the new coach, and unfortunately she's broken down, and we're not going to see her in sub-7, sub-8 from a racing capacity. She's going to be there. She's going to be working with us on the television. She's been such a big part of the story. We're following her for the last 18 months in this whole build-up, and following a lot of her pacers that have been doing a lot of work. So she'll be there, but it'll be disappointing to not see her go after it, because the workload she was doing behind the scenes, and this unspoken rivalry between her and Nicola. I think you speak to any of the athletes. We've spoken to a few athletes since Lucy has been injured, and we're talking a lot of the understudy for the event, whether she wants to do it. We're talking to other athletes who are coming on board. We spoke to Nicola, and Nicola was legitimately disappointed. And a lot of the athletes we've spoken to since then were like, far out, I really wanted to see Nicola Spirig go over this distance, against someone like Lucy Charles, because, there's always been discussion that Nicola could have dominated this distance if she didn't stay in long course for so long, but in short course for so long, which she did, and was the most successful Olympic athlete of all time. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, interesting. It's sad, but, this is racing. It's what I think we're more sad about not seeing St. George as well as sub-8.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's not simply the sub implication. It is the St. George implication. It's the potential Kona implications. It does fit. There's always that sense of unfairness. And I know that, nothing's guaranteed in sport, but you're right. You go off that St. George performance last year, I still think was, with the exception of Flora Duffy's Olympics, probably the best female performance of the year. Overall, I thought it was exceptional with that huge run that she dropped. You could see that she'd, as you said, gone to another level, so to speak. Yeah. And, you really felt like this was going to be the year where, she wronged a lot of those rights. And something that I know that we've spoken about, me and James and me and you and stuff, is that there was always this risk that Lucy might be that, always the bridesmaid sort of thing. She was there racing against Daniela Reef the entire period when Danny was so dominant. And then as Danny starts to drop off, there was going to be this new wave of ITU athletes who would step up, and then Lucy might potentially miss out. And it felt like, no, she's broken the mold. Yeah. So now to have this happen, it definitely does feel, really unfair. But, you talked about the implication on the race. The thing I was genuinely excited about was that dynamic where it was going to be Nicola chasing Lucy all day, because we know Lucy's this incredible swimmer and Nicola's this incredible runner. And, you talked about how Nicola's I just need to keep her in sight because I know I can run 10 minutes quicker than her. And I was loving that idea and seeing the way that those two completely different athletes can both execute a race very, very differently. And it is. It's disappointing, but it's for so many reasons. And I think, Lucy's an absolute champion, and we're definitely going to see her back. Yeah. It is. It just sucks. It sucks that
If you watch the YouTube video that we just dropped with Nicola Spirig talking about her preparation for the event, and it's very interesting. It's on the sub-7, sub-8 .com website, I think, or
Pho3nix YouTube channel. Yep.
Pho3nix YouTube channel. And it's a great interview with her talking about how she was approaching it. Now, that was under the assumption Lucy was racing, and how she was looking at the swim and how she was bringing the marathon runners in to do that. Now, we've been talking, as you know, we have understudies on both the men's and women's side of this event that have been preparing in the background just in case this happened. We have two, and we're in conversations with both of them on who could potentially come and fit the mold, and obviously giving Nicola the utmost respect and saying, okay, this is what's happening. Your whole dynamic of the actual No, Nicola's preparing just for Nicola's race, what she's going to do. But as we said, the race again of a Nicola style athlete versus a Lucy Charles was a completely different dynamic than the other athletes we're talking to that potentially come in, where it's a completely different race altogether. So it'll be interesting from a racing perspective. I think for Nicola Spirig's approach, she's racing the Zurich Marathon this weekend. I spoke with her last night, talking about this situation, and she's like, nothing changes for me. I know what I'm doing. I'm going back down to training camp in Gran Canaria. I'm back swimming again. The collarbone's moving. I said, how bad you swim? She said, well, my swim's never been exceptional. As Brett says, don't worry about it. You lose an extra minute? Oh, don't worry, I'll make it up on the run. Right. So, and she's right. She's 100% right. And that's what makes Nicola Spirig so bloody great, is she just doesn't get bogged down in the crap that can get in your head. She just sticks with the reality of the situation. So she said, bring on whoever. She knows who the two underlings are, and the studies that have been preparing, been working with the pacing teams that are aware of this, that have always been on standby. And she said, bring either of them. I don't care.
I mean, I also saw some reports saying that it was always a case of, like, I know that that there have been the people that were, as you said, the understudies, but there were also conversations about Nicola doing it solo, much like the sub 2, wasn't it? It was going to literally just be Nicola go and see how fast she can do it. That was also a thing you guys were considering?
We were considering that deeply because we've accumulated so much work around Lucy Charles. We sort of wanted to close that story loop to some degree. When you're asking athletes, a lot of people think, these athletes are just preparing for an Ironman, right? And you've seen it behind the scenes. You see the workload they're doing. This is not an Ironman, mate. Like, this is next level in the preparation stage. Doing this team's time trialing, everybody's like, it's way easier.
That's not what I'm hearing.
Joe Skipper. Yeah. Right? Joe Skipper's winning Ironmans all over the world. He's one of the best. He's put one of the favourites to podium in St. George. Even he's saying, mate, what their guys have to do is next level, right? And so you're seeing that. And there was a lot of discussion internally whether I'm speaking out of school because I don't know if this was the case at all, but whether this build up for this event was part and parcel, part of the reasoning that Lucy broke. A lot of that run volume, she was very, very lean. You did have St. George Worlds on in a month, and then us a month later. So it's a big, big racing block. She's starting to move into that peak form of racing. She was very skinny, doing a lot of running to counter an Annie Haug and a Nicola Spirig, who are the two athletes, and a Laura Phillips, who are big runners, right? That are coming across, and a Kat Matthews, big runner, right? That you have to build that run in order to win St. George. And in order to win sub 8. And you wonder if that little bit extra push this early in the season has been the catalyst to the break. But it's been sad to see, because she's such an exciting athlete. She's the most popular triathlete in the world.
Do you think that there's also maybe an element, and again, I don't know anything either, but it's almost like maybe Lucy sniffed blood in the water a little bit with the year that Daniela Ryf, or the weakness that we're, for the first time, what seems ever, really starting to see in Daniela Ryf. Do you think that maybe Lucy saw that, like, I could really actually do it to her this time, and therefore maybe that also, it's not so much about your Annie Haugs, your Kat Matthews, your Laura. Maybe it is that fact that, like, okay, I see an opportunity here to actually finally beat Daniela Ryf at a World Championship event and like really try to do it. Do you think that could have been a factor as well?
Oh, I think that's across the board for all women, not just Lucy. I think everyone smells blood in the water, right? You saw the Dubai race with Phillips there, and you
destroyed her on the run, like
destroyed her
on the run
across the board, destroyed her. And then you've now seen Taylor Knibb step up at California with the decimation of the world's best there. I think a lot of the women's felt that fatigue last year in Daniela. That 70.3 world's performance was her worst performance at the distance ever. And now we've seen another 10th place. She was second in Dubai and 10th in California, right? So it's way off the pace.
And disqualified. She actually technically got disqualified.
In the downhill. Yeah. So it is a vulnerable Daniela Ryf, and that vulnerability brings belief in the other athletes. So I think, I agree, Lucy. I think it was, she was probably thinking it's her time to shine, but that's the worst thing you can do as an athlete, because it's not a rite of passage. Mm-hmm. One steps down just because you were number 2 for years doesn't mean you automatically fill the spot. You've got to win that spot and earn that spot. And injuries are frustrating because others step up and build confidence. And you're exactly right. You may miss your wave. She will be back. She will be back. She will sort herself out, and she's got great guidance through Dan, who works with Frodeno and Annie Haug herself. So he knows what he's doing. And she's an amazing athlete, and sometimes these setbacks are the best things. But it could open the door for others, others that suddenly you're dealing with not Daniela Reef as the world champion, or Annie Haug as the world champion, but someone else.
Look what happened with Patrick Lang when Frodo had his 2 years.
Totally.
Patrick Lang, 2 world titles, and exactly, it's a real possibility. I mean, I think we touched on just before even Lucy was injured how Laura Philipp became the number 1 ranked athlete in the world with the PTO rankings, and I was like, yeah, I think if you look at how everyone's racing at the moment, that's a pretty accurate. It's a pretty accurate number. Like Laura Philipp is absolutely flying at the moment. Like she's just every race she's at now. Like I think at first it was like, oh yeah, Laura's doing pretty well, and it's to the point now where you can't ignore her performances. She is so strong at every race she's going to, and good time to be coming into form like that. I think it's
well. If you're in the women's field now and you're looking at St George and we're 1 month out, right, and we're all talking Lucy Charles, and now we've been able to see a bit of form racing. We had Challenge Salau, we had California, we've had Dubai. I think we've seen a vulnerability in Danny, right? She has not performed, and it's been not just the last 2 races of the season. She didn't perform last season the way she should. She's used to. Yeah, she won a couple. I think she won Ironman Switzerland, 70.3 Switzerland and that, but they're cherry picks, to be honest. Right? At the big events, she was left a little bit exposed. I think you never underestimate a tiger like that. She's now in Sedona on training camp. Boom, she's got a month to pull herself together, and she's proven in the past. And I give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, she's earned that.
She's earned that benefit of the doubt. You have to look at Phillips as the favourite going in, and Kat Matthews, right? You have to look at those 3. Taylor Nibb's not there. I just can't. Annie Haug is there, but she didn't. You saw what Kat did to her in Lanzarote over the half distance. I blew her doors off. So it'll be interesting to see this dynamic going to St George, and they're sort of the athletes we're looking at, and we'll make an announcement on to replace, because they were that's
the thing. I guess can you give us some hints as to maybe how things are going behind the scenes around who
I can't give you. We're speaking to a bunch of them because there was a few in there, but I'll give you some hints. Number 1, the event's in Germany. So I'm not going to give you any hint. Number 1, event's in Germany.
Yep.
So it'd be nice to have a German racing it, right? Whether that's going to happen, it's not the case. But Lucy's whole build-up around English and being an English attempt, and Chrissy Wellington owning the record, and her pacemaking team being predominantly English, and this whole English attempt, a lot of the footage we have, and knowing one of the athletes that we're talking to was heavily involved in that and knows the journey to where they are. So not only were they underling, and not only are they capable of doing it, and they're English, it does fit that narrative. So there's an English one we potentially could be talking to. And so there's a couple of Germans, and I'm not going to give too much away, but they're all capable of breaking 8 hours, and they're all very, very aware of the project. And from our end, it's a matter of picking the athlete we think at this moment brings enough to the story narrative and is capable of delivering on this course performance like that.
And do you see, as I sort of touched on at the start, is this going to lead to a completely different dynamic for the event? Like, I know that you said Nicola's preparing for Nicola, but do you believe that, or do you think that once this athlete is announced, do you think that maybe will change the way Nicola approaches this event?
Mate, Nicola's a racer, right? You can say all those things. Yeah, I just worry about myself. That is bullshit, right? It's true to some degree,
yep,
right? But you obviously are aware of the person you're competing against, and I think when you mentally have been prepared to be on the chase all day, which would have been the case, and now, with any of those athletes where we're talking in the background, it's a completely different dynamic. It's going to be a lot closer swim. The bike and run are going to become more important than ever. And as we're learning across the board, I've just seen it with the men's teams that have been submitted, the pacer teams. It's interesting that the pace of selection.
Yeah, I was going to get to this.
Yeah, how they're going to do that. So that the paces, especially on the bike, and how they're being used, and the science behind that, where how they're using their power, how they're measuring that power, how they're swapping the paces out, how they're using their nutrition, because man, that's an interesting story, and I'm a little bit concerned about anyone who does come in, how dialed into that they are, right? And a lot of the ones we are talking to have been dialed in from a secondary perspective, watching someone else prepare for that and being involved from a pacing perspective and in a training perspective, but not when you've got to lead that. Not when you've got to now build a strategy around yourself and use those paces or use different paces to select it around that in a short period of time. So that's the interesting dynamic, and that's the deeper conversations we're having.
I think the pacing thing, I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but there is I think one of the things that I hadn't considered being so important to the pacing decision, especially around the bike, is that need for people that have ridden together before. Like, maybe in the back of my head, I was thinking, they're just going to get a group of athletes who don't really know each other and rock up the week before. And and it's like, absolutely not. These people are looking at people who have literally ridden thousands and thousands of kilometers together, fast, tight. And I'm like, it makes sense that, and it is curious then to see how these people, these triathletes who don't have those thousands and thousands of hours experience, are going to plug into that environment. And again, hearing the conversations between the teams and the stuff that's happening is like, they've got plans about how they're going to mitigate that, basically, allow these groups to then, I find it so fascinating. It's
that's what's great about the UK as well, right? Is that such strong 100-mile TT and
love
on trial scene they have there, and they're the masters of it. Anyone who spent a lot of time in the UK, especially on bikes, knows the power and the grit of that community that exists there, and being strong across 100 miles. I remember Philip Graves came across when I was racing. He was the 100-mile TT champion of the UK, mate. This guy was an axe, and he swam good, and he came to Kona and swam boom. Now, he didn't like the heat, but geez, he had some power, right? And that's what's interesting about a lot of the teams that have been selected, looking at a lot of the teams and a lot of the sports scientists and the people in the background working with the athletes. A lot of them are coming out of that UK community.
They really are.
A lot of them are coming out of there, right? And a lot of the team dynamics have been brought with UK cyclists, so especially from this 100-mile group and teams time trialists that are so used to this style of racing, right? And that's been very, very interesting, because I was expecting, pro tour riders, and they had the option to do that, but they've gone. A lot of them have gone in a different direction.
Well, also I find interesting is that the pacers know each other because they are in that community so well. So there is almost this like, I know they're doing this, and it's very fascinating. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next week and the announcements and everything, because I know that this event, if anything else, is going to be awesome. While we are on the sub stuff, I do want to talk about a few races. Just quickly.
But we should tell anyone who wants to do sub. I think are we putting the tickets? This. We're allowed 3,000 at the venue. I think so. Anyone who wants to come, I don't know how I'm going to reach out on the podcast thing or something. I don't know.
We'll work it out.
Especially any of the MXs or anyone out there, we'll be keep eyes tuned for the announcement, because we've got to put the names down because of COVID. Well, not so much COVID, but because of the track. We're sending 3,000, a spot for 3,000 people.
Yep. We'll have an allocation for MX members.
An allocation for MX members, or the MX members, you'll have your own allocation. But for everyone else, it's 3,000, and we're limited. We might open another round to get people in, but because it's a closed stadium, we basically have to not ticket it because it's free to get in, but we basically have to
get the names,
have the names.
Yeah. And again, I think that's the thing. Like, it's not going to just be about the 4 athletes. It's going to be like, it's going to be a who's who of people. Again, I know some of the names of people that are going to be there, and it's like, if you like triathlon, if you're even slightly interested in this and you can get there. Like, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be absolutely epic. So the things that I do want to talk about a little bit is, Alistair Brownlee's Oceanside race. We recorded our bonus podcast last week, and we were talking a lot about Alistair Brownlee and his commitment and everything. And it's, again, you talk about triathlon having a very short memory, or a lot of the people who say, I told you that he's not got it, he's done, he's got. What did you take away from Ali's performance in Oceanside? And what I'm curious to get, and I suppose it also applies to Joe Skipper a little bit here too, but we are, as you said, a month out from St. George. Do you take away Alistair Brownlee and Joe Skipper going, I'm not going to dig that deep because I have a race in 4 weeks? Or do you think it's maybe a weakness in their performance? Like, what do those performances tell you about leading into that race?
He blew some cobwebs out. Right? Alistair hasn't raced for a long period of time. Yep. I thought he was great. I've always wondered with his nutrition. He seemed to fall apart nutritionally. As a mile from home, he had the race, not in the bag, but he was definitely dominant. I find Alistair, and there's no illusions, I'm a huge fan, right? I think he's entertained me for years, and he's earned my fandom. So I think he's amazing to watch. I find him still relatively immature in the long course racing. He applies that short course punch to his racing. He's not as patient as I think he should be. That's just an outsider's perspective. I think he's always forcing the pace, right? Front. He's a front runner. And that's why it was a record. It's the fastest they've ever gone in California. Remember, Jan Frodeno's done that course, right? So that's people need to come back to the simple fact. That's the course record that they just did, right? And Alistair was under the course record, I think, even in 4th place, right? So the 3 guys in front of him are all course record performances to win. So that's better than Jan, better than anyone before them. So Yeah, it's a fantastic performance. I thought I was very impressed by Lionel Sanders across the board. I thought he's.
What do you think he was riding the old bike?
Was he? I didn't see. I didn't.
Yeah,
did you see?
He's riding the UCI legal one, and I think I've heard people suggesting that maybe he's testing it out because Oceanside's got a bit of climbing, so maybe he's thinking the lighter TT bike.
Yeah, I didn't see the bike he was on because most of the footage was up front. I like that Jackson Laundry. I think he's, we saw him in the Arena Games, a bit of Super League racing back in the day, and he's just sort of come about. And he's just a very, very patient, strong, across the board racer. And I just thought that, and now I didn't watch the whole race, so I came in and out of it. So I just think Ali gets a little bit, it reminds me of it 70.3 Worlds in South Africa. Bang, he applies the pace, straight past, boom.
Yeah.
He's very aggressive. He did it in Nice, bang, he applies the pace. He's very, very aggressive racer over the distance. And I just don't, it's a much longer day and you burn up a lot more. And I think Ironman even more so. And I just think he doesn't need to be that because and I think he's getting caught out a little bit on that too much revs. But overall, I think he walked away a little bit wounded. Yeah. But I think he can only draw positives from that, and you got a month to build. And an Ironman, 70.3 to Ironman, it's a completely different race.
I mean, you what you've just said, I think if you compare Ali's style of racing going off at the front, and then you look at an athlete like Gustav Iden, who made his Ironman debut last year in Florida.
Yep.
Same thing. Lionel Sanders was at both, and you watched Gustav, and he let Lionel set the pace for that first half marathon. He's not going out running his pace. He's letting second place, set the pace, and he's thinking and then he went kaboom. Yeah. Time for me to go to work. Do you think that maybe that's the lesson that Ali? And again,
I'd like to see if you watch any of Alistair Brownlee's racing as a World Cup athlete, and any of his success stories, even in the Olympics or anything, he is a front runner. He likes to dictate terms. Yeah. Right? That's a very difficult way to race Ironman. It is extremely difficult, and that's all I'm saying is like that dynamic, because I had a similar racing dynamic where I used to go off the front of the bike and hang on, right? And you had to reinvent yourself to be successful at Ironman because it's a very difficult, the Norman Stadler way and the Chris Leotto way of winning Kona and being off the front all day, the Lucy Charles way of doing it is a very hard way of doing it. And it's much easier to be a sitting kicker. And, I think when you look at Gustav Iden, he's going to always be a sitting kicker. If you watch him train and you follow the footage, he's always sitting off Christian Blumenfeld constantly. Christian is a front runner, drives the pace, and Gustav sits off him. So when I saw him with Lionel Sanders, I'm like, you're dead. This is an everyday, this is what he does, right? Yeah. Like now Lionel's moved into that training environment, that Norwegian training environment, and he's only, he dropped to 68 in California.
Flying.
Big running, and I just feel he looked bloody good. Right? He looked very, very good, strong, stayed in it. The Lionel Sanders of before, when you watch him go, I don't know, he do his race debriefs. I don't know if I want it. I don't know what happened. He just seems more trusting of the journey, of the process now. Yeah. I'm just going to do what's asked of me.
That's a dangerous Lionel Sanders, I think.
That's a dangerous Lionel Sanders. It's a fantastic Lionel Sanders. It's back to the old Lionel Sanders that everyone fell in love with. Let someone else do the thinking. And I think he's going to be very dangerous in St. George. And I still think Alistair Brownlee's going to be very, very dangerous in St. George. I just hope, if you're listening now, or anyone, a little bit more patience. You don't need to win this race until the last 10 meters, mate. Any race.
You said that.
No one cares who led the most. No one cares who was on the front the most. It's about winning across the line.
The last thing that I want to touch on a little bit, and this is very much in your wheelhouse, is the recent emergence of a bit of a rivalry. I don't know if you want to call it a rivalry or shots fired between Joe Skipper and the Norwegian. Now, I don't know if you've been following this, but Joe did an interview with Try 24/7 a few weeks or maybe a week ago, and it was basically, don't buy into the hype of the Norwegians. He's like, you know what? They're not front pack swimmers. Yes, they run well, but that was when they were sitting in a pack. Like, I've looked at their watts. I can do that every day. People need to think that they're not unbeatable. I can beat them. And the Norwegians, Christian and Gustav, did that video where they're basically like, don't believe the hype, and the Norwegians don't believe Joe Skipper. Like, there's becoming this dialogue between, which I really love. Do you think that is that purely Joe trying to get in their heads a little bit, or do you think it's like, I don't know. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, I don't know Joe super well. I don't know. I know we spent a lot of time with Joe, but I wouldn't say I've spent more time with the Norwegians than I have Joe, and I don't know the Norwegians very well either. So I'm talking as an observer, but I do know the Norwegians better than I probably know Joe. They're fucking legit, man. They're seriously legit. But I like Joe's headspace. You cannot create this absolute fear, because he is right. You just saw what Martin Van Riel and the others did to him in Dubai, isolated him. And mate, Christian Blumenfeld swam exceptionally well in Dubai. I don't care what anyone says. He got out with Eric Watson, who is a
Good
fantastic swimmer, right? Like it's just that Martin Van Riel and Andre Salversberg are Vincent Louis and better, right? And when you've got small groups like you did in Dubai and you don't have those feet, the one difference between a World Cup or a WTS event is that the first best swimmer, top 10 swimmers in the world are there. So the best swimmer in the world leads, the second best swimmer gets on his feet, the third best so you just need to tag the person who's just running, and you basically get out in the train, right? When you're in these smaller groups, and Alistair talks about a lot with Super League, especially in the eliminators, the holes start to happen that you can't, the first best swimmer versus the sixth best swimmer, you can't tag his feet and you lose the gap, and then it's mano a mano. And that's what happened in Dubai. So Joe is correct what he's saying. But in St. George, there's going to be a lot of people filling those gaps, right? And you're not going to have the big swimmers up front will be Frodo, Ali, Gomez,
Josh
Josh
Hamburger. I don't know if he's going to be allowed because he's had issues with his visa.
Yeah. So it's whether that group can break, and I think they're very capable of doing that. I think Jan and Christian are going to, Jan and Alistair will be on the same page, knowing that the pace is coming from behind. The benefit that these Norwegians have is they're happy to chase. Gustav Eden's happy to chase, do work all day. So is Christian, and they've got the bloody the Lionel Sanders train coming up from behind, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to be an amazing race. I think Joe is still very, very capable of podium at this event. The one thing about talking the big game, it's fantastic for us. We love it, but there's got to be an element of belief in there. You don't just talk it to be a dick. So Joe must have a little bit of confidence in where he's at in his training, and trying to get everyone to buy into it too, because I like it. I think, I saw Joe win the last Ironman I watched in Ironman New Zealand. He went sub 8 hours and damn, mate, because he never got out of second gear, blew the doors off everybody, right? And it's a very, very, it was a very dynamic performance there, right? Now it's been a long few years since. He's had some great racing in between then. He hasn't lost an Ironman, I don't think.
He came fourth on the weekend in South Africa.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what they were like. I think they said something about, because you hear the hype about the English, and then it comes to race day and it just, where's the hype?
Okay, because Matt Hansen won that, didn't he?
No, Cole Buckingham. Cole Buckingham
Cole
first,
Buckingham, that's right.
Bradley Weiss second, and Matt Troutman third. That was an epic. Actually, I watched the finish of that race. That was epic. Bradley Weiss doing everything he could to catch. Oh my God, I just said his name. What am I? Who did I say? Who won it? Cole Buckingham. Yeah, and Cole ended up winning by like 20 seconds or something, with Bradley Weiss literally putting, I think I think it was like kilometer 4, like 38 or something. He put 30 seconds. The gap was a minute. He brought it down to like 10 seconds, and then it just held. Cole Buckingham held that 10-second gap all the way to the finish line, basically. And you see Bradley Weiss, hands open, sprinting, trying to catch Cole Buckingham, and just couldn't do it. It was a good finish, but yeah. I spoke to Joe, and he was saying that he had a mechanical, so he got to the front of the race on the bike, had a mechanical. And then the group caught up, and then he just kept trying to get away, and he couldn't. And by the time he got off the run, he's like, my legs were cooked from constantly attacking on the bike. And again, as I said, world champs in a month, you don't want to necessarily dig super deep a month out from an Ironman, I guess. So
that'd be an interesting race as well. Like that St. George race, it's not Kona. So it's a world championship up. It's a completely different race. So it opens up the doors to a bunch of people that you may, and Joe's one of those athletes, I don't, as are Blumenfeld and Eden and Frodo, all this shit's happening. Frodo's out skiing, mate.
Yeah, I don't,
which I love, right? I'm sitting there thinking he's either super confident or he's not going and's got everyone fooled, and mate, you can't discredit the king, man.
No, he's still the king, exactly.
So man, mate, he knows what he's doing better than all these guys, and there's a lot of noise in the background. It's all that shit gets worked out in a month's time.
I can't wait. I'm excited. Macca, thank you very much for joining us, and get you on again soon.
So easy.
And we're back. I spoke a lot about this with Chris.
Make some good points, eh?
I think so. I mean, the main takeaway of everything else is it's upsetting for Lucy. Like I'm really upset for Lucy Charles. I really felt like she was going to have this fire year this year, and the potential for her to, this is something that Tyler Mislachuk said us, that sometimes if you want to win everything, you've got to risk everything. And that's, I think, something that only those elite athletes can probably understand. And it sounds like Lucy gambled a little bit. And It's really upsetting, mate, that I really felt she was going to have, as she said, this incredible year, and we're robbed of that. I think she was going to be an absolute favorite in nearly every event she went to this year. And I mean, other thing, what does this mean for that attempt at Paris? Like, are we going to see her suddenly go, I didn't win those world titles this year I thought I was going to. I'm not going to go to Paris. I want those world titles. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a real shame that she's not going to be there for this year because, like you just said, me and you've discussed a lot the kind of form that she was carrying. She could have had an exceptional year this year. She could have won in St. George. She could have done the sub-8, and then she could have gone on and won in Kona. And then that would have been the sort of, right, I've got those titles to my name now. I can spend the time required to focus on Paris and try and get to the Olympics and race as a short course athlete to try and get a medal. And then suddenly you've got your titles, you've got your Olympic medal. I mean, you're up there in the pantheon of legends, aren't you? So it's a real shame that she hasn't got this year with the form she had to do what we thought she was going to do. But she is young, man, and she will be back. So basically just sending our best to Lucy Charles-Barclay and hope for a swift recovery and, look after it, rehab it well and come back strong.
Chris also made some hints about what Sub8 is going to be doing, what their plans are. They are replacing her. They've got an understudy that's coming in.
Oh, that's exciting.
So if people want to know, check those Pho3nix socials next week, and I think something might be coming out. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to chat with Chris. I also spoke with Chris around the whole rivalry with the Joe and the Christian and that sort of stuff. And because I feel like it's very Macca-like, like what Joe did going out saying, this is how you beat them. Like that reminds me very much of Macca going out saying, this is how you beat Crowe. And that's probably so. It's always a good time chatting with Chris. He just knows so much. So it's always good to get him on, mate. What's next, James Bale?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. Not a huge amount of PTO news this week, bro. So I thought we'd just have a quick look at the rankings and see if there's been any changes. On the women's side, number 1 is still Laura Philipp. Number 2, Lucy Charles-Barclay. Number 3, Daniela Ryf. Number 4, Tyler Knibb. And Tyler Knibb's up 1 place from 5th. And in 5th place, Annie Howe is down 1 place from 4th.
How many points did Taylor Knibb get for her race in Oceanside? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head, no. 6th
talk
place,
and I'll find out.
Yeah,
talk and I'll find out.
Kat Matthews. 7th place, Emma Pallant-Brown. 8th, Skye Monch. 9th, Jenny Metzler. 10th, Paula Finley. 11th, Holly Lawrence. And I finished at 12th because of the announcement that Nicola Spirig is going to be retiring, and she's in 12th place on the PTO rankings. And I think that's amazing because of the conversation we had earlier about how she's always been relatively short course focused, and then she does 70.3s. We haven't seen her at Kona. And despite all the success she's had at short course, at the age of 40, in the year that she's retiring, she's still in 12th place on the PTO long course rankings. She's remarkable.
She's mate.
On the men's side, number 1 is Gustav Eden. Number 2, Jan Frodeno. Number 3, Lionel Sanders. Number 4, Daniel Beckergaard. Number 5, Sam Long. Number 6, Patrick Lang. Number 7, Joe Skipper. Number 8, Jackson Laundry, who's up 4 places after his result of the weekend. Number 9, Ben Canute, who's down 1 place after a result of the weekend. Number 10, Florian Anger. Number 11, Rudy von Berg. And number 12, Christian Hogenhaag. All the athletes from 9, 10, 11, and 12 have dropped down 1 place.
I see.
Did you just say girlfriend? Girlfriend?
No, I said your friend because
my friend.
we remember how you struggled to say Christian Hogenhaag's name that time, don't we?
I don't know, but
remember?
I'm always messing up the pronunciations. I just want to go and have a run around Steven Schloop.
Steven's Loop. Taylor Knibb got 104.57 points. The ideal time was 4:08.13. She went 4:06.31, so she was 2 minutes or a minute and a half under. So decent number of points there for her. So
she's good, eh?
Good to see again. Yeah, mate. She's fucking red hot. She's red hot. And again, I like that we have something we can track, and I like that it changes because I'm always like, how often does it change? It seems to be changing weekly now, which is good.
Yeah, it's changing more often now. Initially, there wasn't a huge amount of change, but I'm pleased that it's a dynamic leaderboard now. So every time there's a race, that leaderboard reacts to the results of that race. So it makes the sport more interesting to follow, doesn't it?
Is Christian Blumenfeld going to enter the rankings properly at number 1? Are we going to see Christian just go straight to number 1 this year, do you think?
That would be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
It would be. I mean, he's ranked, isn't he? He's like 69th or something.
Yeah.
I just picked 69 because it's the best number, but he's quite low.
I mean, we haven't got an Alistair Brownlee in the top 10 on the men's, have we?
He's been injured for 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Down low on the PTO, done and dust. James Bale, the next part of the show is where we talk about the MX Endurance Podcast membership, where you can sign up for as little as $3.40 a month and get access to our bonus monthly episodes. We record every single month with Macca. It's always a good time. It's a good way of supporting the podcast. Gets us to St. George, like we're going a few weeks now. We're going to record a whole bunch of content. We're also going to be recording a whole bunch of content at Sub7, Sub8. I'm really excited about that. That's going to be so good. Like knowing who's going to be on the ground there. I'm sure we're going to do some good interviews there. You're going to get inside access to all that stuff. We're going to have an MX allocation of tickets for Sub7, Sub8 too. So if you want to get those tickets, you might as well also come and join the podcast membership at the same time. mxendurance.com/podcast. You get partner discounts. As I said, supports us, helps us do this show, all that good stuff. And you get plenty in return for your small subscription fee. James Bell, if they want to find out other things about MX Endurance, where do they need to go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. It's super easy and is very beneficial. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow the podcast. If you've got any suggestions, guests, or comments, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
Yeah, get on the reviews at the moment, guys. That's what, if you can. If you can't join the membership, get on there and give us a review. 5-star review would be a big help. I don't know, put your favorite workout, put your picks for St. George, whatever it is. Put the 5 stars and put whatever. You can do it in app now. It's super easy, as James said. So yeah, great way to support us if you can't, if you don't have any bucks to throw away. It's absolutely fine. That's something you can do that helps support the podcast. We get your messages all the time. We really like it when you guys reach out. Even if it is spoiling the result of Oceanside, I can't stay mad at you guys because you're so good to us. James Bell, pleasure as always. Talk to you later.
Take care.